the shop, please.
Here we are, 11 Savile Row, London West 1, and the Huntsman Store, which has been the front for the Kingsman organisation for at least 3 films so far. Kingsman: The Secret Service, Kingsman: The Golden Circle, and a prequel, The King's Man, for which the exterior of the shop and a bit of the street had to be redressed to look like the early years of the 20th century.
My father also brought me here for my first suit. Kingsman, world's finest tailor.
It's only the exterior of the shop that we saw in the film. You won't be surprised to learn that the interior was recreated in the studio. You can't be running a business with all these bloody actors traipsing in and out all day, can you?
As Hemingway said, there is nothing noble in being superior to your fellow man. True nobility is being superior to your former self. Now, first thing every gentleman needs is a good suit, by which I mean a bespoke suit, never off the peg. And Kingsman suits are always bulletproof.
The actual Huntsman Store isn't nearly as dark and not as green as the film version would have you believe. But the big surprise that comes as you turn around and realise this isn't a cosy little shop after all. The space stretches on to the actual open working area. It's light and airy, lit by skylights, allowing in plenty of natural daylight. The paper patterns are hanging up, and the suits are being tailored right here. And if there is a secret organisation operating out of these premises, all I can say is it's extremely well hidden. Oddly enough, there's no mention of the tailor shop or it being used as a front for the organisation in the comic book or the graphic novel, even though it was co-written by Matthew Vaughn, Sir Matthew Vaughn, who went on to direct the films. Apparently when he was 18, Mr. Vaughn got his first handmade suit run up here at Huntsman, and I think that's when he came up with the idea of it possibly being the front for a secret organisation. Came in really useful some years later. Huntsman has a long history. It was founded in 1849 and moved to these premises in 1919, just after the Great War. Actually, the name Huntsman sounds like a brand that was conjured up to cater to the hunting, shooting, fishing crowd. But in fact, the shop was founded by Henry Huntsman, which is a bit of a coincidence. And that's, of course, it was a name that sort of suggested the shop. If he'd been born Henry Bagwash, this could have been a laundrette. Well, it's a thought. There's a load of clanking and bumping you can hear. There's building work going on. This is London, there's always something somewhere. Lots of businesses or places associated with a film are usually a bit iffy about stressing the link. You know, the kind of thing. Yes, I think we were in that film. I don't know, I've never seen it. But Huntsman, to its credit, has embraced the link and has wholeheartedly collaborated with the film, and it's even kept the Kingsman sign outside. Established 1849, Kingsman, which is over 160 years before the comic book. Now that is some foresight, or a movie prop. And there's another reminder of filming on Savile Row, just down here at number 3. That used to be headquarters of the Beatles Apple Corporation. Apple Corp. Get it? It was on the roof of that building that the Beatles played their very final live performance in 1969, which was captured in the documentary film Let It Be. It's up there on that rooftop. There's a blue plaque up there recording the event. 30th of January 1969. Their last live performance on the roof of this building. Sadly, the gig didn't last too long. There were some people who objected to having to listen to the Beatles, and as people slowly caught on, the streets around the West End became impenetrably clogged. The police were called, and that resulted in a handful of rather sheepish-looking bobbies, bringing an end to what turned out to be the Beatles' final live performance. Savile Row is one of those places that's become absolutely synonymous with its product. Smart, handmade, bespoke suits. In the film of Dr. No, when Bond casually mentions his tailor, it's simply Savile Row.
Interesting. Where were you measured for this, bud? My tailor, Savile Row.
And it just seems the most natural thing in the world, doesn't it? Ian Fleming doesn't actually mention Savile Row in any of the books, and Connery's suits for the James Bond movies weren't even made in Savile Row. But that's not really the point, is it? Savile Row is a brand in itself, and where else would James Bond get his suits made? In fact, there have been tailors on Savile Row since the early 1800s. This is where the dinner jacket was invented. It was the Prince of Wales, known to his chums as Bertie, who wanted something slightly less formal than tails, though not quite a tracksuit. In 1865, Henry Poole came up with the classic dinner jacket. A few years later, it was introduced to the USA, upstate New York, in a place called Tuxedo Park. Yeah, over there, it's a tuxedo. They probably claim they invented it. They didn't. Bertie, he went on to become King Edward VII, and we'll be meeting him again shortly in another Kingsman shop. If you were thinking about it, you can't just rock up here, open a shop and call yourself a Savile Row tailor. There are standards. The Savile Row Bespoke Association requires that at least 50 hours hand labour are put into every two-piece suit. That's impressive. If you've seen the second film, then you'll know the Kingsman shop gets blown to two bits by Julianne Moore. Spoiler. That means that Merlin has to invoke the Doomsday Protocol, which involves moving the remaining members of the team, it's basically just him and Eggsy, to new secret central London premises, which turns out to be on a street even posher than Savile Row. Let's go and take a look at that one. The Ritz, Piccadilly, and on the corner, not a McDonald's, but Caviar House. Yep, this is St James's Street. The architecture here is pretty imposing, if not quite intimidating for what's basically a shopping street. Well, it's not really any shopping street, is it? This is for jewellery, fine art, and yeah, it's the heart of hunting, shooting, fishing territory. This street, St James's, is, and the whole area actually, is named for the building at the end of the street, which is St James's Palace. And it's actually the official royal court of the British monarch. If you're an ambassador, and I know that is statistically unlikely, but if you are, your full title would be Ambassador to the Court of St James's, and that is the Court of St James's. Remember about ambassadors and embassies, we'll be coming to that a bit later. We visited St James Street briefly in the first movie, Kingsman: The Secret Service. Remember villain Richmond Valentine, played by Samuel Jackson, getting his top hat for Ascot?
Now this is a dope-ass top hat. Gazelle, let's go ask Scotty.
Well, he bought that here in a shop called Lock and Company. And it is the world's oldest hat shop. It was founded in 1676 and it's been in this little store since 1765. Remember we saw where the dinner jacket was invented in Savile Row? Well, Lock and Company is where the bowler hat was born. Why a bowler? Well, you know what it's like when you're out hunting, you're galloping along, you got your topper on, there's a low hanging branch, whoosh, it off. Nightmare. They needed something a bit lower, so the bowler. And Lock's other contribution to cinema, they made the bowler hat for Oddjob in Goldfinger. Yeah, in fact, they used to, I don't know if they still do, they used to do a range of 007 hats, and you could in fact buy an Oddjob style limited edition square top bowler hat. Though whether it came with a steel rim, I don't know. I would have thought that was essential, really. This is just a couple of doors down from Lock and Company, and you're probably recognising it from Kingsman: The Golden Circle.
What's the Doomsday Protocol? We go shopping.
Yep, this is their backup headquarters for the Kingsman organisation after the Savile Row shop has been blown up. This is wine merchant Berry Brothers and Run, and it's been here since 1698.
We're from Kingsman. We'd like to buy some wine and use tasting room number 3.
The vault underneath, where Harry and Eggsy discover the bottle of Kentucky bourbon, is one of the company's real wine cellars, and it actually was used for secret political meetings.
Not one of my predecessors has ever been in this situation before.
After he'd been exiled from his native France, Louis Napoleon Bonaparte, that's the nephew of the little guy in the hat, held secret meetings with his supporters here to plan his return. The outcome of these meetings, Louis went on to reign as Emperor Napoleon III, and this is now known as the Napoleon Cellar. So maybe Kingsman isn't quite so far-fetched after all. Now, the very observant might have wondered why a wine merchant has a coffee grinder as its hanging sign. And that's because Berry Brothers started out as a coffee house in 1698. They expanded to serve cocoa, tea, started selling snuff and spices, and soon became the coolest grocery store in London. It's where people like Lord Byron and Beau Brummell would pick up their basic necessities. It wasn't until the end of the 18th century that Berry Brothers started importing wine and spirits and the King's Ginger. Yeah, just to clear up any misunderstandings here, the King's Ginger was a fortified beverage which was brewed up in 1903 for the King. And this brings us neatly back to our old friend Bertie. Remember the Prince of Wales with the dinner jacket? Well, by 1903, he descended the throne, not to become King Bertie, but Edward VII. And after dinner jackets, his new passion was cars. In fact, he was the first member of the British royal family to take an interest in motor cars. The King had a 1901 Daimler. Of course, cars in those days didn't come with climate control as a standard feature. In fact, they didn't have tops. And the weather in England isn't always as lovely as it is today. In fact, there are photos of the king sitting in the driving seat of his car with a rug over his knees. What he felt he needed was some kind of revivifying tonic to keep the chill at bay. So he turned to Berry Brothers, and they came up with a drink based on brandy, ginger, lots of ginger, lemon juice, and probably a few secret royal herbs and spices too, I should think. Oh, and one quick health and safety notice: it's no longer recommended as a tonic while driving. Get that? Not even if you're the king. If you're a regular film goer, not just a Kingsman fan, you might recognise Berry Brothers as the office robbed by Estella, played by Emma Stone, in Cruella, you know, the Disney origin story of the nasty doggy Skinner, Cruella de Vil. Oh, sounds horrible when you put it like that, doesn't it? It's okay, kids, it's Disney, it's a kids' film. But before she becomes Cruella, Estella and her crew go on a little robbing spree. After the robbery, Estella and her crew make their escape scooting along Pickering Place. It's not really the best escape route. It leads only to this tiny Georgian square, which is the smallest square in London. Looking very quiet and sedate now. It was once a hive of gambling dens. There was bear baiting, they say, and duels were fought here. It seems a little bit small to fight a duel. That's what they say. And it's one of the last places in London still lit by gas lamps. And yeah, look up there, you can still see, you see the gas mantles inside the light fitting. Now, there's one more little interesting thing. Remember I mentioned ambassadors and embassies earlier? Here we are, deep in the heart of Texas. Kind of. If you didn't know, from 1836, when it declared independence from Mexico, up until 1845, when it became the 28th state of the USA, Texas was an independent republic. And this was the Texan legation, basically the Embassy of Texas. And conveniently, it's right across from the Court of St. James's, and also in the same building as Berry Brothers. Yeah, sharing your premises with a wine merchant. Sounds like a good idea to me. And the end of Kingsman: The Golden Circle, with US agent Tequila, suited, booted and bowler hatted, getting out of the cab on St. James's Street. But he's not heading straight for that secret cellar underneath Berry Brothers and Rudd. We pan slowly around past Pickering Place to another section of the wine merchant. And this is what for the film was transformed into the new outlet for the world's finest tailor. And in the window, of course, Kingsman's signature orange velvet tuxedo. Well, I guess that's about it for today. I'm about to toddle off home, and I might sample a drop or two of the King's ginger. I'll let you know how it goes. So until next time, bye-bye.